Good morning, everyone. It's about 10:15 or so, and I'd say, about halfway through our system, maybe a little farther along than that. But many of us woke up this morning, and it wasn't quite the 3 to 5 inches we expected, at least early on in the morning. And there's a couple reasons, at least from what I can see, of what happened. So many of the models, at least over the last day or so, have been trending southward, and most of them had stabilized around that central Minnesota area. But by the time the system actually made it here, most of the heavy band of snow, which would have brought that higher snow total throughout our morning here, had shifted a good 60 to 80 miles down south towards the Marshall area, which we can see live on radar right now. We still see that swath of heavy snow that moved across southern Minnesota, including the Twin Cities, Hutchinson area, like I said, Marshall, Redwood Falls. That all moved across late last night, and it's pushing off into Wisconsin now. We can see some sporadic bands here of snow, which is also going to be a big variable where some heavier bands set up in these little smaller bands is going to continue to dictate where we see heavier snow. So there's not going to be really a generalized area of heavy accumulation. It's going to be a lot more localized. I know across St. Cloud this morning, parts in far eastern St. Cloud, we're seeing maybe around 1 to 1.5 inches of snow, and the western parts of St. Cloud, we're seeing almost 3 inches of snow. So just between that, they've already seen that much of a difference, which all depends on where heavy bands set up. Now, there is a little bit of break in radar here. I think partly due to there isn't as much snowfall in there, but also there's not really good radar coverage up in here. So I think there is a possibility here that snow is falling. It's just not being picked up because there is just no radar in that area, and these snowstorms and tops of clouds are just so low with these snow events that usually we can't pick them up this far out. So I do think there is some coverage. I don't think there's that big of a break in the snow here, but I think there is still a small break. This rest of the snow will continue to push its way down to the southeasterly direction, probably a little more of this track, and that will bring some additional snowfall. I think for here in St. Cloud, I'm not even going off models anymore because um, they have not been doing very well with this system at all. It looked like they were, but most of them had agreed last night, but obviously they have not done a great job. But I think maybe another couple inches across central Minnesota here is definitely possible. I don't see anywhere across central Minnesota really getting up to that 8 inches. However, I think southern Minnesota, the Twin Cities area, might actually be getting pretty close there. Looking at what they have snowfall wise, they already have reports just southwest of the cities of almost 7 inches of snow. So already getting a fair amount there with that first heavy band, and like we can see, there's still a little bit more expected here in St. Cloud. Snow reports of about 9 inches, at least just south of St. Cloud, about 3 inches, right around 9 o'clock this morning. So about 1 to 3 inches across central Minnesota, and where that heavy band set up across southern Minnesota, which was originally looking to be across St. Cloud, but obviously shifted about those 60, 80 miles south. They got anywhere between about 3 to even up to 7 inches. So even far down south as Rochester, they're still seeing about 4 inches of snow. And I'm sure areas across Marshall and far southwestern Minnesota, no reports yet, but I think they might also be sitting close to that 6 inch range just due to that consistent heavy snow, which they've seen over the last multiple hours. So right now we do still have winter storm warnings in effect for majority of central Minnesota, including Twin Cities, down towards Willmar, Hutchinson, and down towards the Redwood Falls area. This is still, again, for about 5 to 7 inches of snow expected. The National Weather Service hasn't changed a whole lot of their thinking in terms of where they're expecting the snow to fall. So they still think that the decent amount of snow is likely in this pink area, but once again, this storm has been unpredictable of what it's doing, and like I said, this is what Clipper systems do. They're very hard to predict. Things change, especially at the last moment, and it's most of the things that models don't pick up on because they're just that difficult to predict of where that heavy snow is going to set up. Otherwise, everywhere else in this blue area is in that winter weather advisory, and I think it's good for about somewhere between 1 to 5 inches of snow. But I think that the bullseye of this storm is probably going to be around this area of the Minneapolis, St. Paul, down towards Hutchinson, Glencoe. That whole area looks to be the main point of interest with this storm. Looking at road-wise, we see a couple crashes here on 94. I'm sure there's probably a couple more down the cities. Otherwise, majority of the roads here are pink, which means they're covered with snow. And these blue storms means usually that there's a little bit of snow on the road. Light snow on the roadway. So majority of southern Minnesota, including the Twin Cities, in that pinkish purple color. So road conditions, not ideal. I know there's plenty of plows out there that are working on clearing the roads, but especially down in the cities, even in St. Cloud, commute is still pretty slow. So if we're going to be out, take it slow. Just make sure to add a little extra time to our drive because it is a little slick out there and there is definitely still snow on the roadways. And even right now, it's still snowing and our snowflakes are getting a little bit bigger. But the reason why I think we also haven't seen as much snow as what was expected is just due to the size of the snowflakes. In that really heavy band, they had decently sized snowflakes. So dendrites are our biggest snowflakes that we can get, and that's what I was expecting was some pretty big snowflakes. However, much of these snowflakes have been looking very, very small, and I pulled up a sounding here from this morning out of the Twin Cities, and what we can see from this, I highlighted this in this red area, is called the dendritic growth zone, which is between about negative 12 and negative 18 degrees Celsius, and you want as much of this sounding as you can get in between this area, and we really don't have a whole lot of it between that area, and I'm sure it's probably even less up here in central Minnesota because they have a little better conditions down in the cities, but not a whole lot of room for those snowflakes to really grow really big, combined, and coalesce to each other and become these really big snowflakes. And also looking at this profile here of our wind, the winds are a little stronger than what was anticipated, somewhere between, at the surface, about 10 to 15 knots or so. So that's decently strong wind, and that's certainly enough to shred those flakes, which is why we're getting more of these needle-like snowflakes than the bigger snowflakes I were expecting. However, our snowfall ratio is still close to about 13 to 15 to 1, so about 15 inches of snow for 1 inch of liquid, and the majority of it is right around a quarter inch of snow, which is why our snowfall has been at least fluffy at this point. None of that heavy snow is also expected, but I do think that as temperatures will cool off a little bit more, that we'll get a little bit bigger snowflakes as we head into the evening. It'll be a little bit better conditions for that, but I also think that it's going to be much lighter snow. It's going to also be a little windier. Wind will pick up later this evening, so unfortunately it does look like at least those snowflakes will probably continue to be shredded, but there are still pockets of heavy snow that look to be possible as we head throughout our day today. But regardless, definitely still snow. I know that we're still looking at a white Christmas. I know I don't think that the temperature is getting into those mid to upper 30s. Next week is probably going to melt all of it. I think we will still have that 1 inch of snow for a white Christmas. But stay tuned because this storm has been all over the place. Models aren't predicting it well. No one really predicted that it would shift about 60 to 80 miles down to the south. So stay tuned for some more updates if things get crazy. However, I do think central Minnesota and St. Cloud in particular is in for probably another couple inches of snow. And this system also looks like it's going to be sticking around a little bit longer than thought. I think we could be seeing snow showers into our evening, but I don't think major accumulation is looking likely. It should be a pretty constant, just light to moderate snowfall for the majority of our day. And as long as these snowflakes are staying how they are with that very tiny shape to them, with maybe a few mixed in a little bigger, I don't expect a huge surge of accumulation by any means. But if for some reason we get some really nice conditions for those dendrites to start forming, and we do get a heavy band of snow, snow totals could add up pretty quickly. And it is possible because temperature-wise, it's fairly good for those conditions. So regardless, stay tuned, stay safe out there. Once again, Minnesota 511, fantastic tool to be looking at in terms of road conditions. And of course, we'll have more updates as needed. Have a good day, guys.